This is Eric. Hopefully my audio is working, so I will talk for a second and check that out. I was hoping to start right on time, but live is hard. I'm used to doing that with several other people helping and me not being the focus of attention. So I'm only on one camera, unfortunately, because I did some update on my iPhone, and then it won't connect to my computer until I update that. And so like all of my apps are bricked, and the thing I was testing to try to use the phone as a camera keeps turning off after 5 seconds. So unfortunately, that is not working. But Vern, do we have audio?
Yes, we do.
Cool. So I'm going to move the camera down to this computer build, and so this is probably the last you'll see of my face. You're welcome. And so let's talk about building this computer. So almost 2 weeks ago, I think, we started this and kind of ran out of time and had to go get some old tools. But I did put all of the standoffs onto the case and then mounted this motherboard. And so this is an Asus Maximus 12 motherboard. And I actually had to go check out the manual, unfortunately, to check out a couple details about this board because, if you can see clearly, so a lot of times motherboards will share PCI Express lanes between the different components, and so you have to share bandwidth between different combinations. And so because there's three options for M.2 solid state hard drives, you've got two here and then another one down here. I had to see which one shares with which, and so I believe these two actually share lanes with the other PCIe ports, and then one of these also shares it with two of these SATA ports, which I think, make sure I can see that. Yeah, so some of these are shared with these devices. So I'm going to put the M.2 hard drive in this lower one. So it's got its own kind of integrated heat spreader there, which is cool. And so I'm going to actually run and grab a couple tools that I left over on the table. So I'm going to come back in 1 second. All right, we are back, and hopefully my audio is still good. Does anyone want to type in the chat if you can hear my audio? It'll probably be a 10-second delay. But, so I did get the manual. I hate to take the manual out, but there actually is something important in this one. And so you can see this one, hopefully it's auto-focusing. It's talking about connections with shared bandwidth. And so this main PCIe card is where your graphics card is going to go, so I don't want to share anything with that. So I'm going to leave the second one down unfilled and put the capture card will do it, the bottom one labeled B here. And then since we are going to use this bottom M.2 slot labeled C, we're going to lose access to these bottom two SATA connections, which is fine. There's 6 here, which is more than I'll need for this build, but you just want to pay attention. It'll be either or, so you'll lose ability to use those. So we're going to use the top two SATA connections. And so just looking at that, we're talking about this lower M.2 slot, and then we're going to lose these. So we'll be using these top two and then not using this two there. So let's take the heat spreader off and take a look. I hear sound and focus is good. Cool. Great. And And then there's no echo this time. So get a little better every time. That's the motto with tech and stuff like this. And I don't know if this is a great angle for this, so I'm going to spin this 90 degrees for you. Unfortunately, try to get this webcam to work, and I would have it above and looking down in the computer build, but I am having trouble putting that web camera. It's a USB-C, and it's having trouble getting it connected with any kind of extension. So if you put it through a USB hub or even a USB cable, I haven't tried it with a powered active USB extension, so that may be the problem. But so however limited you are, which I think is 5 meters in USB cable extension length or whatever, it's less when you use a second cable extender, and then probably less so with USB 3. So just fair warning, get the cable length you need, because extenders cause problems. So I'm just looking for a slightly smaller Phillips head bit. And so this is a new board for me, and so I'm going to actually take off the integrated spreader here just to take a look. And before I do that, I guess we should do the peel here, huh? So hopefully if you can see this pretty well. Nice. It's always fun to do that. I've got a really good video of peeling off the sticker from the NewTek TriCaster Mini that we just got for work, and actually just arrived in Arizona. We're doing a remote concert in a week and a half from an artist in Phoenix. So this will be the first time controlling an actual pan tilt zoom camera remotely. TriCaster is a really well-known name in broadcasting. A lot of shows and sports use it. And so we're doing some really cool stuff controlling it remotely. And took the protection off and scratched it immediately. So I should probably leave the plastic on until I'm done building this next time. Live and learn. And I had a cool magnetic parts tray, but I think I buried it when I set this area up last week, so I can't, unfortunately don't have that. And so this is just completely cosmetic. It's not even metal or touching this heat sink, which is on the main chipset processor for this board. Used to have 2 on Intel boards, one called the North Bridge and South Bridge, and I think they're all integrated into one now. So I'm not sure if they call that something different now. Feel free to type it in the chat if you know. I don't know if Martin's still there. He was there, and if anyone else joins and wants to be a mod, I'm trying out a new rule. Anyone who's comments in the chat, I'll make you a mod. And then we'll see how many problems that causes. All right, so I'm just going to put that back because it doesn't look... Oh, actually, no, we do need it off to access this, which I just wanted to look at. So yeah, every board's a little different, and although you can get all the information you need by reading this, I don't recommend it because what's the fun? I like to learn by doing, and hopefully the mistakes you make aren't expensive. Although with that said, that approach has got me to have to replace both the processor and motherboards before, so maybe don't take my advice on that. But now I am much more educated about what not to do when working with electronics, electricity in general, and especially extremely sensitive and expensive electronic components. I will say I like all caps. I'm kind of far away from my laptop, so if you type in all caps like Jenny did, I can see it better. So thumbs up, emojis, happy faces, and all caps encouraged. Because otherwise I'm not going to be able to read it from here. Ah, she says blue wrenches for everyone. I agree. It's wrench anarchy on the stream tonight. There. And so here's those other two M.2 slots that we talked about. We're not going to use those because I don't want to give up PCIe lanes with either of these other slots, but they're there if you wanted to do some kind of interesting extra hard drive, or I guess you could put them in RAID or something, but I'm not going to do that. So that was just an exploratory expedition just to check it out. And let's see if there's any chance of getting these screws back in. So this is partly complicated by the fact that if I was doing this on my own, I would probably just be sitting on the floor with this instead of trying to lean over, standing up on a table and keeping my hands out of the way so you could see. And so I mentioned last time, it's probably better to do this with like a second complete build, kind of halfway ready, like you're doing a Julia Childs baking demonstration, you know? You don't sit there for 45 minutes and wait for the preheat, or 6 hours for the roast or whatever. You have one ready. So someday, when I have extra $4,000 to have a second build halfway ready, I could speed this up. Or I'll just edit this when we're done and we'll fast forward it and be like, ta-da. But yeah, if you're watching this after the recording, feel free to put on like 1.5 or 2x speed and zip through it. I actually have gotten to do that doing a lot of books on tape and tutorial videos, and it actually sounds weird to me now to listen to people speaking at a normal cadence, and it sounds like they're intentionally speaking slow. It's kind of weird. You kind of program yourself to listen for, I do about 1.75, and it's arduous to listen to someone speaking at normal tempo now. What are my recommendations for cleaning a machine like this? So mostly, hopefully, all you're going to have to deal with is dust that's floating around in the air. And so the easy thing is you can get a can of sprayed air, and every 6 months I kind of open up the case, if it's a closed case like this, and just blow off around the components that are exposed. And that's probably going to be mostly what you need to do, and that'll just make sure that no dust is caking up and, you know, affecting, mostly it's heat dissipation. So if you get a lot of gunk building up, it's not going to dissipate heat correctly. And also it affects the airflow in the case. You want airflow. We can see these are all like solid metal heat sinks in here. All these really cool fluted things. This builds particularly because it's for an overclocked PC. CPU has a lot of heat sinks in it. So all around here, you see this metal tubing. It's probably liquid metal coolant or some kind of liquid going between these and dissipating heat between I believe these are voltage control modules. If you look way down here, the gray things. So those get really hot. Those are responsible for transforming the electricity for the different components on the board and the CPU. And so that's why on modern CPUs, especially ones that are intended for overclocking, you'll see a lot of heat sinks around the CPU and the voltage control units. This also has one over the M.2, and then obviously the main chip for the chipset. Beyond that, if you do something that needs more than that cleaning, the highest percentage isopropyl alcohol you can find, I've had trouble finding anything above 90, but you can get up to like 97%, usually at a pharmacy or a medical supply, CVS. And that's because it won't have as much water. And so if it's like 70% is what, you know, people have been using for their hands and stuff, there's too much water. It's 30% water in it, maybe not that pure. And so water will one, short things out, and two, it'll tend to leave residue and not evaporate. So if you're going to clean anything, especially contacts, the alcohol is good, or else a contact cleaner that's specifically designed for that. Visually stimulating, yes. This is this motherboard is very kinky. I have no idea if these are on straight, so I think that's in. Nope. I think we are off kilter here. How could you guys let me screw that in? Now, Vern, if you're still listening, feel free to not pay attention because I know you're busy editing a podcast, so don't stick around on my account. As long as our audio's going, I think we're good for now. Compressed air, yeah. You might not want to use the air compressor in your shop that has metal filings and sawdust in it. But I use the compressed can air, which if you get from Fry's right now, since they've been seemingly going out of business for 3 years straight, you can get big bundles of that for like nothing. So if you want compressed air, go to Fry's Electronics and get like a pallet of it. Yeah, I went there a couple of weeks ago to get some kind of video encoder, and that was like the only thing on the shelf. I took a picture. It looks like, empty shelf for 20 feet. And I was just like, how has this place been like this for 2 years? Why don't they just say they're going out of business already? But they were the only place in Austin that had that part, and that literally saved our concert last week. So we needed that input. Now, the really interesting things I've seen is people do things to clean laptops, because laptops get much more creative things spilled into them and into their keys. And most of the, Apples, and I know I've seen Dells and Asus, have gotten really good at blocking their sensitive parts from the user side of the keyboard where things get spilled into there. And so you're actually might be okay if some liquid gets spilled in there. But the thing you want to do is, pull the power and shut down immediately. And if you can pull the battery, pull that so that there's as little chance of electricity going through components as possible. Actually, my MacBook Pro, I got about 7-8 years ago, within the first couple days of owning it. It was brand new, first time I'd ever owned a new computer, and it was like the top of the line one. And I was having lunch with my aunt, and she spilled a giant, just like quart of soda right into the top of it. And I was just, my jaw dropped. I was like, how could this happen? And so I immediately dabbed all the liquid I could off of it, and I think I had a kit of little screwdrivers, and I was even able to pull the battery out. But yeah, I was freaking out. And so you can find different, I think I lost that screw. Whoa. Wish I had that magnetic tray now. But yeah, so you could see there's different approaches to drying out a laptop once you've cleaned it, because just letting the soda dry in there is not what you want to do. So you'd have to get in there and use that alcohol to try to dissolve all the gook and, sugar that's being dried out on there. And that's what's going to cause your problem, is the liquid shorting components out, or even corroding. It's acidic. This is water cooled. Yes, it will be. I have my cooling components right here. And so, yeah, all the modern processors need, I mean, at this point, unless you have a gigantic heat sink with fans that wouldn't fit in this case, they put out so much heat. I think the smaller version of this is 65 watts, which is already a lot. And then this one is rated at, I think, up to 125 because it's overclocking. So they assume you're going to be using overclock profiles, and that's a lot of heat. I mean, you think, you know, a 1,000-watt little space heater, and you're going to have 125 here, and I think I calculated this build with a decent-sized graphics card. It could be up to like 600 to 800 watts if you're really chugging along. I have a 1,200-watt power supply, and so you might say, well, that's a lot more than 800. Why do you need that? And part of that is just headroom in case, you know, adding components and different things later. You know, if I were to add a different device that was pretty power-hungry, or peripherals, fans, whatever, a second pump system, you know, if I did add a different cooling loop. But also, you'd never want to get right up to the rating of anything in electronics and engineering and whatever you are. So I think that's out of focus. There you go. So this is 1,200. And so like I said, if everything could possibly, in the most extreme circumstances, be 800, I want to be a good percentage, you know. I want to no more than 60% of my usage. Same thing with CPU usage and graphics card. Like, I was having trouble in recent streams because I was hitting 90% regularly when I was doing some streams for work. And lo and behold, Windows went and did some background process at 8 o'clock at night when I was doing a stream, and it started causing problems. And I had my audio drivers and controlling for my audio unit break and just stop working because it was hitting 100% all of a sudden. And I still don't know where that screw is, so that is concerning. So I'm going to tip this and do a little shake test and see if we hear anything. I'm not super concerned about the lack of the screw that dropped as much as where it dropped into. So if it fell into somewhere where it's shorting out contacts, I'm much more concerned. It looks like it fell into here, but I'm not seeing it. So I wonder if it slipped behind the motherboard there. Well, let's take this off and see if it's by any chance in there. If you saw it drop in the chat, or you want to rewind and tell me where it goes, feel free to post it in bold. I am definitely blaming Windows. Oh, looks like we got someone else that needs to be a mod. Let me make Kenneth a mod. And I got a couple more here. Whoops. You're a mod. And I can't see anyone else, so looks like everyone's a mod. Cool. So I'll let you self-govern in there. If anyone's causing a problem or trash talking Macintosh too much, feel free to act accordingly. Looks like Martin's still in there. Hi, Martin. And so it'll probably be 10, 12 seconds before you hear me respond, even if I see something you post. So just factor that in. If you're looking for a quick response, you're probably not going to get it. Under the box that says H2X, so like in the crack right there, you're saying? That would be a pain. Let's see. So it's stuff like this that takes the question of, oh, sorry about that sound. How long does it take to put a computer together? It's like, well, theoretically, I don't know, maybe 90 minutes, 2 hours, but then you do something like this, and you have to unscrew half of your work because you lost a screw. So I'm going to take Jenny's suggestion and unscrew the power supply and slide it off a little bit and see if maybe it bounced in the crack, because there is a seam there with a rubber gasket around it. So maybe it did a wild jump there. Kind of the magic screw of Dealey Plaza. I actually just heard something fall, so congratulations. I think Jenny correctly identified our culprit. It slipped under the power supply and wedged itself in there. Now where'd it go? I heard something drop as I unscrewed that. That's gotta sound real bad for you. Ah. To quote Breakfast Club, it's an imperfect world. Screws fall out all the time. Thank you, Jenny. That probably would have been a lot worse had I had to take that out after a bunch of other components were put in, so. I wish I had my second camera so I could show you some of the other gear, but I'm going to have to bring it just into frame as I get it. Because, as I said, producing live is tough. Producing live when you're the subject of the camera shot is very difficult. Everything basically has to be perfect and set up ahead of time. And then even then, something will go wrong 5 minutes before you have to stream. And you'll have to go and read some manual or some forum or call your good friend Vern, who I think is still on the phone actually, so if I need him, I can yell out, as long as he's not busy editing audio right now. I haven't seen Vern post in a while, so he may have headphones on. So hopefully we don't have any more errant screws, and I will try to avoid any extra exploratory surgeries. I just wanted to see what things looked like under that because I hadn't seen this board before. A lot of cool little bits and pieces in this model. And so, but I'm not sure how much we'll get to tonight because this case has a challenge of having a lot of options. It's a really flexible case, but we're going to have to pull at least some of these drive racks out. And so we're definitely going to have to get some screws on this top part here to fit the water cooling, because it's a pretty tight case. It's not super, not a bunch of extra space in this main chamber here because they give you so much options for drives. I mean, it's got 8 slots here plus 2 kind of DVD bay, those 5.7 size. And since I'm not going to be putting a CD, DVD burner, any type in this build because it's 2020 and those flat discs are almost like cassette tapes at this point. So I will load the operating system on a flash drive for this, not from any kind of DVD. But that's about the only reason I even have an external DVD player. It's just to load the first software on before you get the network hooked up. All right, let's try to not drop this screw again. Like I said, this is much easier when you're sitting cross-legged on the floor and you can get in there. One interesting thing that, if people haven't built computers, I try to do on components that have multiple screws, like a back of a laptop, or if you have a type of mounting system that has screws on the CPU, like this has 3 screws that if I were to mount something, actually later we may see, because there's 4 screw holes for mounting a water cooler, but you kind of want to use a similar technique to putting tires on a car, where you balance the tension in a circle pattern. And so I never finish tightening one screw on one corner first. I kind of get it snug, and then there's different patterns, but just go around the kind of crossways to balance the tension. Then if there's ever so slight misalignments, you kind of balance that tension and don't push it up into one way. So you want mostly things to go down straight in, and that'll help you out of a lot of problems you'll have later. So I don't think we need this to be off to do any more of the work. Should be able to get to that drive with that out there. And is that focus holding in the right place as I mess it up? Looks like Martin's leaving. Well, we lost a mod. Uh-oh. Not again. Not today, Satan. Oh, jeez. Okay. Whew. Speaking of not today, I attempted to vote again today. So in Texas, we have 2 weeks of early voting, which is nice. But we've had record attendance in the last couple days, starting Tuesday. And so I have driven by a couple times this week so far and seen a line that looks like entrance to a Super Bowl game. And because I have the luxury of 2 more weeks, I've said, nope, not today. But today I drove by 3 different locations and then came back a couple hours later, seeing if it'd be better. And they were not. So I'm going to try tomorrow and see if I have better luck, and then if it's not too long, I'll just kind of give up. They've got a little app for Travis County, Texas, which is nice, that shows you your estimated times, and they've got bands of like 0 to 20 minutes, 20 to 60, and then an hour or more. And so I will probably deal with it if it's like 20 minutes plus. But I can't imagine, it's been a decade since I've been back in New York, where you literally just have the 1 day to vote. It's pretty wild. I encourage people to have their states do early voting as well, because it's kind of surprising that a state like Texas with no state income tax is able to pull it off. But they do. Alright, so just snug on those. So since we're kind of in this area of the board, I'm just going to install the solid state drive first. And so we'll check our pile here. So I got really great Samsung. I've never had problems with these. They're really, let me get some better focus and better lighting on that. There. Yeah, Samsung SSD. These 970 Pros is just better performance and write speeds and stuff. But yeah, these M.2 are just so much absurdly faster than, you know, spinning drives for sure, but even the SATA connection. And so every time it's an option. You'll so almost all the motherboards now will have an M.2 slot on them. And so see how much I have to butcher this box to get into it. There's a lot of security seals on these, so I'm gonna make a mess. One thing I don't like about these is they have these stupid stickers on them, which is like a security tampering sticker. And I am touching the frame of this metal to kind of equalize my voltage potential or ground out on this device before I touch other things. Because this is a fairly sensitive part, and so we don't want to cause any problems. But yeah, this this sticker here is real tough to get off, and so I'll try to start it with my nail, but sometimes I have to get a razor blade, X-Acto blade under there to peel it. But I don't want that in the way of the chip material, the ceramic and the metal here, to put this integrated heatsink on, because it comes with a little sticker and this thermal interface material on there. And so I'm going to stick that over once this is in and mounted, and then I want it to touch directly on the surface. So I'm going to take that sticker off. Florida was good about early voting. That's good to hear. And yep, you can vote in any location during early voting. I think on the actual day you have to go to your precinct. But yeah, there's, you know, a couple dozen in my county. And so, like I said, I drove to 3 or 4 locations just to see what the lines looked like, and it wasn't great. The focus, yeah, comes out. So I'll try to keep things in this area. There, hopefully right there is good. So I'm going to try to remove this sticker. And it's tricky because it's designed to kind of rip apart once you get to the edges here. So and you know, it may be perfectly fine to leave this on. I haven't seen any actual spec sheets or someone testing it, but it just feels kind of like a piece of plastic sticker versus a thermal interface material. And one thing that can kind of tell you it's not great at dissipating heat is when you touch these thermal pads, if it's good at conducting heat, it'll feel cold. So like this, you know, aluminum or whatever this metal is, feels cold because it conducts heat, and actually so does this material. And so that tells you that its conductivity is good, which is the whole point. It's supposed to take heat away from this chip quickly and efficiently and transfer it to larger metal parts to dissipate. And so I don't really care about this sticker staying together, but I want it to come off in one piece. And so if I can get enough of it up. And in case it's not clear, pretty much everything I'm going to do is voiding the warranty. So yeah, taking stickers off and any other tampering with parts. Nice. And there's a little extra gook in there, so I'm going to use the sticky part of the sticker to remove it. Perfect. Now, somewhere in my box of stuff is the little standoff that I need to put right there. And so I'm going to go hunt for that in our little baggies that came with the motherboard. Let's get some of this junk out of the way. Nope, some kind of bracket. Oh, I don't even know what this is, but it's got a wire on it, so it's probably got RGB lighting. I'll have to hook that up. Oh, I wonder if this is like a antenna. Yeah, that looks like antenna connections. Darn, I was hoping for more RGB lighting. Just for Vern. Right, Vern? Warranty void if sticker removed. Soak it in water. Oh, that's a good point. That would have made it come off easier. Well, next time I will do that. Thanks, Greg. So somewhere in the pile of stuff I threw in this box are those X32. Oh, wait, no, that's not it. Oh, I'm looking at the case parts. I need the motherboard parts. That's why. There we go. Motherboard parts has the little standoff and screw. And so since there's different length form factors, and I think it actually says it in there, but I didn't memorize the length numbers, so I just test it and be like, this is pretty much the longest one, so we'll come out all the way to the 2280, looks like. I don't know if that's the length or some number. So I'm going to really try not to lose this screw, because there's only one of them, and it's very small. But I'm going to set it over here on the magnetized. Oh, it's not even magnetic. It's like aluminum. Killing me. But yeah, you put the little standoff into the motherboard. I think I have like another one of these at my office, but if I had to, but cool. And then for the M.2 SSD, notice the little notch there to kind of reference, and you just put it in at a slight angle. You'll kind of feel a place where it slides in pretty easily, and it'll just kind of hang there. And then as you tip it down, it'll fit right into the notch of that little standoff we put in there. And then, of course, it's not magnetized, so this becomes even more precarious. And I'm just actually unscrewing it until I feel a detente where the thread rolls over the other thread, and hopefully that'll line it up. There. Make my life a little easier. And this really doesn't need to be overly tight. You're dealing with really fragile parts. It's just to hold it straight. It's perfectly in connection. So as soon as it stops, I will stop applying torque. That I'm not even going to bother tightening. Cool. So we have the hard drive in. We've got our little cool heatsink cover, and I think it goes that way. That's probably the metal pattern, yep. So we'll peel off the sticker. Hopefully. This stuff's more gelatinous than I'm used to. It's usually a little stiffer. This stuff kind of has a silly putty consistency, so it's really going to stick on there, but yeah, see, it's already deforming. So be careful not to beat it up too much. And this really should be the last time you have to take this off, because these are very reliable components. I've had I don't think I've ever had a SSD fail yet. I mean, there is a theoretical limit of write cycles on them, but it's probably so many that you will be long past a new computer build. And people will laugh when you had 500 gigabyte or 1 terabyte SSD storage capacities. I think they have 2 terabyte ones now, but they're probably absurdly expensive. I remember, speaking of flash memory, back in college, getting a flash drive, if you had 256 megs, it would be a good flash drive, and, that'd be $60. I remember the 500 meg ones were, you could get over $100 for these flash memory. Cool. That's snug. Seated well. Should be good with our SSD. Blinking lights. Vern is requesting more RGB lighting, looks like. Cool. Alright, so I'm going to get a sip of water because one of my lights is a, compact fluorescent, which does give off a little heat. So it's actually getting pretty warm in here. So, I probably want to put the graphics card in because it's going to be tough to get other components. Actually, that's a lie. I want to get the bracket for the CPU. We don't need to put the CPU in yet, but the bracket for the cooler fit and sized in there before we do the card, because that's actually going to make it hard to reach in there. So, let us find that. This is one of those multi-kits that works for AMD or Intel. I'd be willing to bet this is the Intel piece. But actually might be worth checking the instructions. Which I may have thrown away in a violent rage last week, so we may be out of luck on that. Oh, important information. Wrong one. All right, change of plans. We're going to put the graphics card in first. Because I am not seeing the instruction manual on this. So I want to make sure I'm putting the right standoffs on here. This has its own bracket already installed, so that's probably all I need on this side. And then you put this backing plate on the back side of the motherboard that we can get to because there's a cutout in this case, and then we'll have the screws go through, but there's like 3 different sets of screws here. And so I want to make sure I have the right standoffs. So we'll come back to that. Does anyone else need to be wrenched? Or we got everyone? All right. So, graphics card. Which I spent 3 months looking for. My minimum requirement was either at least a 2080 Ti, NVIDIA, of course. Was fairly open to some brands. I've used Asus, MSI, trying to think a couple of other brands. And so things that I've had experience with, and more importantly, used their control software with and feel good about that, then I'm comfortable with those. But these are super hard to find in the last 3 months, and got even harder as we got closer to the 30 series release a couple weeks ago now. So I was actually up, it was 8 a.m. at our time, and so I was refreshing 5 websites trying to buy a 3080 when it came out. And I had one in my cart, and then it disappeared and froze, and the website crashed before I could actually finish ordering it. And so I found this one on like a open box seller on, I think, Newegg.com. So it's, I don't know how used open box means, but we'll hopefully have good luck with that. And so I need to remove, I think, 2 of these PCIe card slots. Ooh, those are tight. So if anyone's bored and watching and wants to check the online documentation for the water cooler, it's the NZXT. I don't know if that's in frame here. It's the Kraken X73. I can't get it in the frame. There. Kraken X73. Just trying to see which set of standoffs I need for the Z490 Intel motherboard, because I think I've got the right back plate. I'm sure this plastic one, because that fits the holes in the back, but there's 3 sets of screws in there, and I can't find the paperwork. So keep better track of your gear than I do. All right, so this is a very heavy card. I wish they would put like supports on the other side of the motherboard. You'll notice it's barely going to fit in here. There's no extra room, so I'm going to have to cable manage very well through these rubber gaskets. But just kind of see how the fit works here. It's actually down 1 set. That's interesting. So that top slot is actually not, doesn't need to come off. Now I know. It's actually good. It's a little more space between it and the processor. I've had trouble with some water coolers and large cards. It's kind of tough to get into. So put that. Is anyone still watching? Haven't seen anything in the chat for a while. I understand if you've gone to bed or gone to watch something on Netflix. Mostly this stream is for me to practice and fail miserably at most of the ideas I had. Had all my different slides and all my buttons ready. Got my Stream Deck with the 3 extension cables wired over here. So I was trying to get a little closer. So this is my new setup. I'm 15, 20 feet away from my other rig. That's part of the problem, is I don't have long enough cables to get the other camera here. Oh, looks like Vern's still watching. But so yeah, I've been putting off this build for a couple weeks since I had all the parts, but I literally actually need to use this next week to stream. So if I didn't stream it, I would still be building it. And even if I end the stream early tonight, I'm probably going to finish this today or tomorrow because I have a lot of software and tweaking and testing to do. Because I haven't used this processor, so there may be fan profiles and Intel turbo overclocking stuff I have to set up. So there's a lot of system stuff I need to do with the new build. And then on top of that, all the custom stuff for OBS and all the software I use and testing that. And so it's probably a couple days worth of just software setup once the physical hardware is all done, which is, to be fair, a lot easier than it used to be. I mean, these components, ever since I've been building computers, are super plug and play. As long as you get the right CPU socket type and the right chip type. This is a 490Z 490 chipset. The manufacturers are much easier to deal with now. I mean, there's basically two options. You either have an Intel type or an AMD. I get the feeling it was a lot harder 10, 15, 20 years ago. Vern can probably confirm that. Tell me the part again. Which part? Oh, the integrated water cooler is NZXT. The Kraken. Gotta get it in the camera. Kraken X73. Looks like that. And so this is an Intel type chipset. It's the Intel, I think it's 1151 maybe? Let's check the board. 1200. Intel 1200 socket. So if it talks about Intel and probably has a list of sockets it works for, 1200, I really just need to know which of these bags of standoffs are the ones for the Intel to get it raised up off the back plate. I've had a third bag. I already lost it. Uh-oh. Oh, here it is. These three bags. If I can set them. It's a little bag with just, AM4, that's probably AMD. And then there's like way too many of those. These are actually probably for the radiator to mount it to the top of the fan area. So that probably solves that. So it's literally probably a choice between this and this that says AM4, which I'm guessing is AMD type. So it's probably these thick kind of thumb screws with these standoff extenders. So just confirming that, and then we'll do that. All right, so what we're doing, we're putting in the graphics card. So now I have the right panels off on the side there, hopefully. And try to slide it in. And the little kind of slides in behind the side here, so you have to kind of put it at an angle, and it'll go into its PCI slot, and then there's a little latch there that'll click in when it goes in, and it's actually tough to unclick because it's so far back there, so it's tough to get the card out. So just kind of rock it straight in. I think it's bumping into the screw on this next cover, so I'm just going to remove that. Make this a little easier. So this is one of those things that's a little different with every brand and part. This one is super tight fit. And I'm really not trying to force anything. When you have a $1,500 graphics card, everything should slide in nice and easy. Feels like I almost feel like something's hitting. Should probably put a limiter on that channel, Hovern. Almost feels like something's hitting this. That'd be pretty wild. I think that could come off if that was the case, but I just can't believe they would put something in the way, but it feels like this edge isn't going down. If that's the case, that's not the problem. Whew. Someone needs more info. So the options are basically AM4, which I'm guessing is AMD, or these, which have thumb screws and standoffs. Although I don't know why there's like 8 of them when we'd only need like 4 at most. I'm also surprised there aren't springs in this kit. Usually there's a backing springs to kind of hold the tension in. Can someone give me a thumbs up? Is the audio still working? I know I switched scenes before. But I am having trouble with the card getting into the slots back here, or these little metal parts for PCIe devices that goes into the side here. And I'm just trying to see if there's something to this card. Maybe they're a little bent. It kind of looks a little bent, actually. Maybe that's it. Maybe it just got a little off kilter. Yep, I think that was it. Yep, I think that click. Yeah, it was the little wings on the graphics card were a little bit bent, so I just kind of bent it out and that clicked. So that's yet another one of those things. You just never know. Something's a little bit off between brands or tolerances. And so two of these screws from the case, if I haven't lost them all already. And if I had my other card, I'd probably put it in now too, as long as I'm here. But I don't have it quite with me, so I'll just take the... try not to strip this. And really making sure these are seated well, because this is such a heavy card. Alright, so I'm going to take off the bottom two of these panels, because I know I'm going to have a device. And the one thing with PCI Express devices is there is quite a bit of width difference. So you'll see this is a really wide card, and any of these new cards coming out from NVIDIA are huge. And so, you know, this width will really limit what else you can have in here. So you can see you can barely reach the next card slot, you know, just outside of the fans. And so it'd be really hard to have a, you know, get a device in there. And it'd be also blocking the air. So I'm not going to use that slot for sure. And so I'm going to use the lower one where there's a little more room, but it's going to be tough to get in wires and cables because all the USB headers and things are down there. So that's the fun of cable management, but we may be saving that for a different day. Someone's got the PDF for me. If you got the link of the PDF, you can pop it right in the chat. I believe I allowed links, so, and you're a mod, so. Excuse my drinking. (2001 to 266). I don't know if they're labeled though. So if you've got a picture, is it the black ones with the thumb screws? Which I'm pretty sure it is. The other option is the AM4 bag. The other one doesn't have a label, so. But yeah, if you have that info. Or feel free to post that PDF. Especially, I'm kind of surprised there isn't springs. Usually there's spring-loaded tension. So I wonder if I can get this fan out of my way. Probably not. Let's just tuck it back here. Because I'm going to have to get to that power connection. Almost certainly the extra power connection on the board that's hidden in there next to a fan stand or a fan connection. And so once we get to that point, then we'll decide how much room we have once we get the RAM chips in there too. So yeah, if you've got the PDF, please feel free to throw it in the chat and I'll pull it up. So we're going to get the cooler standoffs in behind the processor, and then it's probably actually a good idea to put the RAM in after that because we may have to orient the heat sink and pump for this cooler around, and we'll not want to know how much clearance we have above that. And then we got to get these cages out of this build at some point. So, got that link for me? Whoops, see, dropping stuff all over. I don't see it, so let's just guess and check. But while we're going in the back, I am going to take a few things off that I know can come off. Can you see this? Yeah, so right here is a thumb screw to take off this black drive cage, because I am almost certain we're going to need that clearance for our radiator. And we may even need to take this large drive cage and shift it down and just get rid of this 3. There's a 5 and a 3. And so I may need even more space to get the cabling and stuff. So we'll kind of fit it once we get this cage off. But so I took the thumb screw off, and I know there's a couple more screws in the back of this. So let's see what that looks like. So, there's at least one thumb screw, and I think some, oh, they're all thumb screws, but I'm going to need a screwdriver. Yep, I got that link, thank you, Jenny. Let's see. Kraken. Cool. Looks like that answers the standoff question. Thank you, Jenny. That's two for O for help from Jenny today. Everyone else is slacking. All right, so I'm going to take, yeah, there's no way that was going to be thumb tension. Dope. And remember, kids, I'm on a glass table, so we could have fun, very exciting outcomes today. And so I'm unscrewing all these to get this drive cage out of here, because it is in the way of what will shortly be our radiator. This case comes with some nice cable management ties on it, and lots of rubber kind of gaskets and places to come in and out from the back side to the front side. So really nice. It's pretty flexible. And I think this cage will lied, I may have to take out the other cage first. Boom. Out. Into the garbage. All right, so if you can see that, I'll mount our little backing plate. pretty easy on these. It just sits flush. These kind of have little mini adjustments. It's interesting, this is just 4 points. Because it's got little solder kind of pieces sticking up, so that would actually prevent this from being flush. But it goes into the 4 points. And I think that's all we need on this side, so I'll flip it back around. Certain cables pushed in. That sounds like a lot of telling me what to do. Cracking. I don't like it. All right. Let's see if we can get zoomed in. Is that visible? Hopefully. All right, so the next question in these standoffs is, do I put the short part in there and then leave the long, which I think is what we do. Oh, it's a different thread. I think that question's been answered for me. It's the long part that goes in to the back of the case. Interesting. So, I don't know if you can... Oh, that might be a little better. Yeah, I'm kind of blown away that they didn't have springs with this. Usually you have a spring to help kind of even out the tension. But I guess if it's screwed down, it's stable enough. Oh. Ah, I think I answered my question. There are two kinds. There's a short one and long ones. So I probably should start with the long ones, and if it's too much play, go back to the short ones. That's one of those things you'd probably figure out if you read that incredibly large PDF instruction book. But I'm all about experiential learning, so. Yeah, notice this one has a long and a short end, whereas these ones have 2 long ends. I hate to be putting so much pressure on one point under me too, because like I mentioned, we are on a glass table that's not particularly put together well. There's not a lot of support areas underneath it. So we could go have some fun. All right, finger snug. Notice they kind of move around, which is weird. But let's see. Whew. So, if we're going to learn anything about the fit visible? Just barely. So if we're going to learn anything about the fit here, I think the card's blocking. I need a taller tripod. Let's see if I can raise it up a little bit. Still in the way. Let's give it a taller support. There we go. Now we can at least see it. All right, so to really know what kind of height and adjustments we need, I think we just need to put the processor on and kind of get it fit. So we've got our Core i9. This is the 10900K for overclocking. It's pretty much the high end of the desktop single processors. Beyond this, you usually get into multiple processor, multiple Xeon server boards and things. But yeah, this should be screaming fast. I forget if it's like 5.4 gigahertz. And so, like I said, purpose of this build is mostly for streaming, although it'll be able to do any kind of rendering or stuff we need. It's 10 core hyper-threaded, so 20 logical cores, which is a pretty good processor. And when you spend this much money on a processor, you get a cool box, so that's always fun. Ooh, look at that. Neat little tray here. There's probably more instructions in there. Alright, so here's the part where you want to be very careful. Not to do anything to bend these pins. So this processor will probably be face up, but the way you can tell, there's a little notch on the bottom two sides of this. It's all flat contacts on this side. And I believe that 1200 number is the number of pins on the back. So it was like 1150. Now it's 1200. And so you see the little 2 notches in the bottom, keys it together. And then you just set it down. And it goes underneath that little screw. And as you push down, it should pop off that little cover. And you hear creaking and crunching, and it's kind of scary. But that's just the pins being depressed. Now, if it was a lot of resistance, you might want to double check and relift that. But yeah, it's seated nice and gently. Ooh. And locked down. So that's pretty secure. And so you could put, any regular, interface, whether it was a coolant, radiator with fans blowing through, or our water cooling system. So I'm going to get that out and just do kind of a test fit to see what we're doing, which is a little tough. We have this freed up now, and I actually have to probably unscrew. There's some metal trays here and stuff that's blocking our access to this, but so this is the kind of thing, it's tough to plan until you really get everything in there and realize like how bulky these cables are, and it's like, well, it's not really going to go that way, so which side am I going to put these tubes on? And probably makes the most sense to go over here on this side. And notice we've got this metal thing in the way, so we can't really even fit it there. But yeah, that's probably what we're going to do. And then say, okay, this is just a circle, so it doesn't really matter which way we put it, but I want to use up all the excess cable length so it's not in our way. And so go down. If we go up to the side, it's probably going to be putting some tension on there. If I have it downwards, I'm worried that it may be in the way of cables coming here, but we actually have a good amount of clearance on this board. So that's good. So on their picture, oh, they've got a little logo, so we should probably pay attention to their picture. They've got the cable coming out the left, so if we want our cool logo to look the right way, I guess we could follow their instructions. I'm just also a little worried about clearance of the RAM. Yeah, see, that's super close to this RAM. And so before I do that, we are definitely going to put our RAM in. Cue inserting RAM music. Put in our Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro because that's all that was available, but it's still pretty cool anyway. And this is 3200 megahertz RAM, so it's pretty fast. It goes up to 3400 megahertz now. I've never overclocked my system clock speed to that level anyway. And then it's 128 gigabytes of RAM. I've actually never built a computer with that much. I think 64 is the most I've done. So it's an absurd amount of RAM on this. But if we're going to have 20 logical cores, let's just go all the way. And let's see if we can open this box slightly less destructively. Here's a sweet unboxing clip. Oh no! The instructions have defiled my build. Get out of here. And so this comes in 2 little cool sleeves. And so these are matched at the factory with different timings. If I look real close, it's 16, 20, 20, 38. And so those are just really kind of high performance timings of kind of each cycle, what the chip does. And then they figure which ones can handle the speed. And so they test them, and it's called binning. They say, okay, these ones are stable at 3200 hertz, and so they go together and match these. It's generally how they do it. And so I have not played with this kind. I'm going to try to not drop it, but we will pop it in, see which direction they go. And luckily, since we're putting all 4 in, we don't have to worry about the different channels of memory and which ones you leave open or not. And so this one, sometimes you have to figure out kind of how the little detents lock in, or sometimes you have to rock it into one side. I think that locked in. If you press the button on top, that hurt. Stabbed myself pretty good. You can check that. The case demands blood. Again. RAM is some of the most tight tolerance thing in here, so sometimes you just gotta rock it just right. It's like you put it straight in and then angle it a little bit away from the latch on top and then rock it in until you hear 2 clicks. Machine health is assured. Another good spring and a good crop. Because we have given the requisite sacrifice. That's really how technology works, folks. I try to talk about, all this nerdy stuff, but it's really blood sacrifice. Oop, that one didn't sound good. Use your ears. If you hear things falling around in there, oh man, that's why I stabbed. Oh, it's those 4-pin fan headers. They're sharp. Man, I got my left figured out too. Ah! Yeah, I wonder if YouTube monetization likes blood sacrifice. I guess we'll see when it translates this. All right, got 2 clicks on all 4 of them. So that's pretty good. Now let's see how that's affected the theoretical fit. Both my index fingers are hurt now. It's good I don't have to play guitar anytime soon. And so this will be somewhere around here. And we're trying to get it oriented this way. Oh, this little thing rotates, it looks like. So I guess you can turn your logo. Yeah, see. I think that's just for show, so that's cool. Because, yeah, I think we'd have some trouble if we try. Yep, that's not going to fit. So we would not be able to mount this that way. Now, to the below is all right, but we have connections we have to get into, so now I have to plug those in to see if those wires are going to be in the way. And this is yet another box I threw all over the place in my blind rage. So I think one of these is actual pump, and then the other one is probably like power for the RGB lights. But so the mini USB is probably going to be fine, or micro USB. But this connection here, It's just a fan splitter. This one I need to make sure we have clearance. Yeah, so this is definitely power because it's got this kind of SATA power, and then looks like it goes to the controller, which splits off to fan and probably pump control. So that's how you control it from the board at the top here. Probably the header I stabbed myself on is the pump control. So I'm just going to see which way this goes in. And then we've got plenty of clearance. We'll get that out of the way. So we'll put this in downwards. And this actually comes with a little blob or a little layer of thermal interface material. And I'm not sure how good it is. It's pretty wet, so that's good. It's not dry. I bought some of my favorite TIM, or thermal interface material, which is down below here somewhere. Hiding on me. And so I may use what came with it just to test it and get it set up, and then go back and reapply the stuff I bought, which is Gelid Extreme. And this, they'll have their performance here, and it's probably not even compared to whatever comes with this. So, Gelid performs in lower temperatures, which means it's better at dissipating heat. So it's just a better material than a lot of the standard stuff. Almost certainly the generic stuff that comes with computer components are on the thing here. But so yeah, let's get our thumb screws out and just see where we're at. So these are pretty snug, which is all they need to be. And so I guess we'll find out if the tall standoffs were a good choice, because if it pulls it down tight, then we'll be good. Looks like we want to be on the inside post. Good, yeah, we wanted those long ones because it's making contact and it's just barely clearing. And so I'm just putting them on there with no tension. Whoop, lost one already. Because we're going to do the old tire tightening rotation thing, kind of do it in a cross pattern to balance that tension. Oof. This is a supreme angle for my lower back pain tonight, so that's good. Really doing well. Blood sacrifice has been made. All right. I almost wonder if I would go on the top, but I think this will be all right. Oh boy. Just kind of seating it spread around that thermal material on the integrated heat spreader, which is that metal part which is on the top of that chip. I'm not sure now. You used to be able to take those off because they had another layer of thermal material under it, so you could delid those and get right to the bare silicon material. So people doing wild overclocking, they could get rid of the extra layers and apparently sometimes suboptimal thermal material, but they may be soldered on now with different kind of metal, but I'm not sure. This is kind of hard to get to, this last one. I should have done that first. Get out of my way. So now I'm trying to see if I can get it to the point where it's snug, but it may be too much play. With these tall standoffs, we'll see. I'm just going down to the point where it no longer moves around. Because you want it evenly spread. Lost the mic again. But yeah, you want the thermal paste evenly spread around and pretty much perfectly flat, and so there's like way too much play up and down and all over on these. This is the part that's tricky with this integrated heat spreader, because these cables are putting tension on this I don't want. So I'm trying to get it even and then tighten the posts opposite each other. And that actually feels like it's snugging them down pretty good. That's probably good enough if it gets touching pretty well to start it up and test it if we needed to. So we got RAM, processor, heat spreader. We've got the radiator for this heat spreader. Fortunately, I need to unscrew more of this case and get to these panels off and get this metal piece off. So I'm going to have to get more screws and pieces off to take this off. We've got our graphics card, our solid state drive, power supply, and so once we get this mounted, it's really just plugging stuff in and testing it, which is not a small feat. There are a lot of cables still to be plugged in, but so I think we've got our layout and stuff figured out. I'm gonna try to put this somewhere safe so that it doesn't fall and hit stuff before we get it mounted. Hopefully that's good, because I want to turn this around. Let's see if I can show you the top of this. Oh boy. Probably the battery. Oh man, that's heavy. So I think we can see that. And so these panels, I believe, just snap off so we can get to our fan outputs. I don't know what kind of build you'd do with those on. I guess if you were routing everything through the back or the side or something. But I am a big fan of going up and back with all my air. And this already has a rear port with a fan, so Vern, if I'm doing this wrong, yell at me. So yeah, these have this nice padded soundproof material, but that is super not good for airflow. I want that open. And then this third one, which is kind of the custom way we're doing this because we have a 360 millimeter radiator and fan set up. We're going to need 3 fans. So that's why we removed the drive cages and all that stuff here. And I'm going to have to get in and remove this metal frame to get access to that third one. But so I think that's probably enough for tonight, just because I'm pretty tired and my back hurts. But so next time we come back, we're gonna get the screws to mount this radiator, and I'll kind of show it. So we're gonna take this radiator. It's a kind of 1 inch, pretty thin one, and we'll mount it behind here with the screws that come with it. And then after that, it's just plugging stuff in, and then we'll test it out. But thanks for sticking with me for at least this much of the build. Like I said, it's a fractal case, really cool, very modular design. We got Asus Republica Gamers board, an i9, Core i9, 10th generation, unlocked, so for overclocking processor. We got our monster of a 2080 Ti graphics card. Hopefully it works. Like I said, I got it on a open box special. And then our 1200 watt Corsair power supply, more than we need, but and then our just absurd amount, 128 gigs of 32 megahertz DDR4 RAM from Corsair. So pretty sweet setup. I've got a couple more things to plug in, and then make sure I got all this. I got to get this metal out to mount it, and so I'll do a little of that maybe tomorrow and do a wrap up, and we'll do our power on self test or post. And so we should be able to do that in an hour tomorrow. So pending anything else blowing up for work projects, we'll probably knock that out tomorrow evening and get it going. So turn the camera on me. Thanks for sticking with me. This is Eric, Tech Tips with Eric, and we'll see you next time.